Let's fight. Welcome in the ring, guys. Let's fight. Happy Friday. Happy Friday evening. Welcome in the ring, whether you're joining us on Twitter, you're joining us on YouTube, on Facebook. Welcome in the ring. We know it's Friday night. We're heading into the weekend, but quite a bit of information to share with you. Quite a bit of information. We hope that you guys stay dry today if you're in the city or on the outskirts, in the suburbs of the city. We hope that you stay dry today. It rained a lot today. How was the weather where you are? We know we'll be having some challenges in places like St. Vincent and the Grenadines, our CARICOM sister country, our CARICOM sister nation. And we're watching events unfold there with the eruption of that volcano, and our thoughts and prayers go out to them. We're going to have a broadcaster from St. Kitts, from St. Vincent and the Grenadines, rather, join us a little later on in the program. And we're going to get an update as to what is happening there and some of the challenges they are facing currently. We're also going to have an update on the nurses' protest out of Linden by a representative of the union who has graciously acquiesced to our invitation to come and share with us some of what has been happening, some of the latest developments where that is concerned. So quite a bit of information to share with you guys. We hope that you are safe wherever you are. And guys, we hope that you guys are taking COVID very, very seriously, taking the precautions very, very seriously as they should be taken. Again, welcome. And as you know, when you come on, we ask that you share the live stream, and we're going to do just that at our end, folks. I hope this old phone is going to give me the kind of results that I want very quickly. So let's share the live stream as we come on board, as we join, as we come on ringside. Ringsiders, let us share the live stream. Retweet if you're joining us via Twitter. If you're on YouTube, we ask that you also subscribe to our channel. We've been getting a lot of subscriptions at that end and a lot of comments as well. We value our comments, whether or not you agree with us. As you know, we always say that in the ring is where it's a confluence of ideas, and that is why we say let's fight when we come in the ring, because it's all kinds of ideas, and we hope that at the end of the day, the strongest ideas emerge. And that is how we think we're going to move our country forward. We don't believe that, I don't believe I have all of the answers. And I believe it's in this back and forth, this tug, this confluence, this fight of ideas, that the strongest ideas prevail. And I think that is what is really going to advance our country. Folks, the phone moving fast this evening. Very fast this evening. And I'm happy to have each and every one of you with me. I don't even want to get into some issues. I don't even want to get into some issues like COVID, because I see a lot of people still not taking the COVID precautions very, very seriously. Still not taking the COVID precautions very seriously. I see that I have my guests representing the GPSU, and also who is a staff at the Linden Hospital complex there, who is set and ready, folks. But I want to ensure that we hit our magic number. And so I am waiting to see that happen. And as soon as we hit that magic number, I'm going to have our guests come on, and we're going to talk about what has been happening with the nurses' protest. As you know, part of the protest has revolved around Mr. Rudy Small and some lewd, very, very lewd comments that he would have made concerning our nurses. And I know they have perhaps some other grievances, but we're going to get right to that as soon as we hit our magic number. Folks, I want to make sure that you share the live stream as you come on, and we're going to have our guests join us just a moment. As I was talking about COVID, I noticed again the Speaker of the National Assembly was at a party at the Everest Sports Club and was not observing all of the COVID protocols. And the Speaker should know better. Having had COVID twice, he was attired with his mask, but he was not observing social distancing. And again, I say the Speaker should have an acute appreciation for the ravages and the horrors that COVID has taken on our population, having had and contracted the deadly virus twice. So folks, let us not be like the people who just waiting for the GDF bus, folks. Right? Because some of us mightn't even make it on the bus or make it off the bus. Let us take the COVID precautions very seriously, the COVID measures, the COVID regulations, whatever you're calling it. Let us take it very, very seriously. And we are almost where we need to be with our magic number. And we are going to have our guest on who is standing by to give us that update as to what is happening with the nurses' protest. As you know, we've been standing in solidarity with them. And I've come from a family of nurses. My mother is a nurse, specializing in dialysis nursing. My aunt, my uncle, all our family friends are nurses. So I appreciate nurses to another level, having been raised by nurses. And I stand in solidarity with what the nurses are doing. I think it is long overdue, and sometimes you just have to put a stop to some foolishness long before they even start and grow into monsters. And so I am very appreciative of what the nurses are doing. Folks, we almost where we need to be this evening with our numbers, and we're going to get right to it. Folks, we encourage you to share our live stream. We always say that we have a role here of bringing you balanced information, credible information, valid information. And part of the role that you play is helping us to disseminate and to spread that information. And so we invite you to share our live stream on Facebook, give us a retweet on Twitter, those of you who are picking us up on Twitter, and those of you who are joining us on YouTube, that you subscribe to our channel and that we invite your comments, whichever platform you're joining us on. Whichever platform you're joining us on, and you can share our feed on Twitter, on YouTube, on any other social media outlet. We would appreciate it very much. And I want to welcome this evening Sister Jennifer Melville-Nelson. She's a ward sister at the Linden Hospital complex and the third vice president of the Guyana Public Service Union. And I want to welcome her this evening. A very good evening.
Good evening to you, Mr. Duncan, and to your viewing audience.
Welcome in the ring. I think this is your first appearance, and I am thankful for you having accepted the invitation.
Thank you very much for offering me the opportunity.
Great. So give us a little backstory for those who are new to the issue, how the nurses came to protest in the first instance.
All right. On the 24th of February 2021, there was an article published by the reporter from Around the News where it was said that the nurses would leave their post at night to go and sleep with their sweet man, as was reported by Mr. Small, the CEO of the Linden Hospital complex. The nurses, through their union, would have written to the Ministry of Health, to the President of Guyana, the Ministry of Social Protection and others, including the Women and Gender Commission, asking for the removal of Mr. Small as CEO of Linden because of this distasteful remarks. The ministry has not to date responded to that letter. However, they have asked that the nurses return to duties, normal duties, before they can talk. The nurses, however, are saying that in order for them to talk, they need to remove Rudy Small because he is the obstacle, and it will be unfair of them to resume duty as normal with him as CEO. So basically, we're asking for him to be removed so that we can continue normal working at the hospital.
Great. Since the protest has started, have you seen a change in the modus operandi of Mrs. Small? Because I would have seen some video which he seemed to be even more emboldened and obdurate as it concerns the concerns of the nurses there at the Linden Hospital complex.
I didn't get your question properly.
Apologies. I was asking you if since the protest has started, whether you would have saw a different side to CEO Mr. Rudy Small. From my vantage point, I've seen a more emboldened CEO by his actions. What is your take?
Yes, that is so. The nurses at the Linden Hospital complex have been fighting tirelessly through this pandemic. And here it is, we have Rudy Small that has no remorse. Um, so, yes, he is very disrespectful. However, the nurses continue to offer their sincere care to the patients and residents of this community.
Excellent. And where are we currently? You did say that the union is yet to respond. What is the position of the nurses in this circumstance?
Our position remains the same. When Rudy Small leaves, we will go back to normalcy. We are just asking the ministry to be considerate and common sense prevails so that we can go back to our normal work. We love nursing. That's the reason why we're in nursing. Right? So we're just hoping that common sense prevails and Rudy Small is removed as the CEO of the Linden Hospital complex so that we can resume normal duties.
Sister Melville, we saw initially there was a sacking of Mr. Small, for the want of a better phrase, and then a retraction of that position. Why the mixed messages from the ministry?
Yes.
What do you think?
On the 1st of March, we received our written indication that Rudy Small was removed with immediate effect. However, on the 3rd of March, a subsequent letter came saying that he was reinstated because he was reprimanded for his actions. So to say that why the changes, only the government can answer that question.
Very, very interesting. Sister Melville, what happens now? It seems as though on the part of the government and the health ministry, they are going to wait out the nurses. We say go back to work and then we're going to talk. We ain't coming to the table until that happens, and we're going to wait you all out. Are you guys in it for the long haul to get the kind of results that you want?
Yes, we're in it for the long haul. We are demanding our respect. Let me say, we were visited by Mr. Jonas, and we were told that we were a set of Black women protesting. And we're here to say that we're not Black women, we're Guyanese women, we're nurses, and we're demanding our respect. So we're in it for the long haul.
Very well. And Nurse Melville, Sister Melville, my own thoughts are to say to you, thanks for your service and that of our nurses as frontline workers. We know the very, very important role that you all play and that you have been playing, especially in this pandemic, Sister Melville. And on that note, what has been the response like in terms of protection, in terms of vaccination for our nurses at your end? Has there been any overtures from the government as to vaccinating the frontline workers, beginning with the nurses?
I'm not aware. The nurses at the Linden Hospital complex, I cannot say to what extent vaccination has been occurring because the health centers are responsible for vaccination.
Great. And what in terms of, as we have this forum, is your advice or encouragement or whatever you want to say to the nurses this evening, perhaps not only in Linden, but across this country, as regards the protest by the nurses in Linden? Why is this so important?
It's very important because as a nurse, whatever happens to one person can happen to anybody else. And as we see countrywide, what is happening, nurses are being targeted or being labeled. And nurses are the only set of people that have, throughout this pandemic, have not had the opportunity to work from home. We're working from day to night. We're on the front line. So I'm encouraging my colleagues throughout the country because we, as a third vice president of the Guyana Public Service Union, we are very considerate. And if it is that the government is pushing us to this extent, we don't want to call out all our nurses at this point in time during the pandemic. So we are very considerate. And we were asking the government to be considerate and compassionate also. However, I'm still encouraging my colleagues.
I think we have a little audio issue. We're going to hold for Nurse Melville, Sister Melville, ward sister of the Linden Hospital Complex, and also the third vice president of the Guyana Public Service Union, giving leadership to this issue of the nurses protesting at the Linden Hospital Corporation. And so we're going to hold for her as we get some final thoughts on the issue. Again, the nurses have been protesting for the last few weeks there at the Linden Hospital Corporation, and they have moved those protests to Georgetown quite recently. I know there was a meeting as recent as today with the union, and one would hope that they are still going to be engaging this issue in moving forward with these nurses, a vital part of our healthcare system, and amplified more so during this deadly COVID pandemic. And again, the nurses feel affronted by the leadership of Mr. Small there at the Linden Hospital complex because of his very, very lewd remarks in the recent past. As I said, the ministry did take the step to remove him, but then he was replaced. He was reinstated shortly thereafter, and here is where we are currently. I have Sister Jennifer Melville with me again, and we'll get some additional thoughts from her. Apologies there, Sister Melville. I don't know what happened, but you were saying.
As I was saying, I'm asking my colleagues across the country to be vigilant and observe what is happening, because whatever happens at one institution can happen anywhere else across the country.
Yeah, and that is an interesting point that is made. And again, having come from a family of nurses, I understand even so more acutely the important role that nurses play and all that they give up for advancing the healthcare system in this country. And I thank you for your own service and the service of the nurses on your charge. Sister Melvin, I want to thank you for joining. Anything that I didn't ask that you might want to put out there as we go?
Pardon?
No, I was just saying, is there anything else you wanted to add that I may not have covered before we go?
I just want to say that we at the Linden Hospital Complex are hoping that common sense prevails and that the Ministry of Health does not take this lightly, that we are respected as healthcare workers in a pandemic. Globally, the world needs nurses. And if this is how you are treating us as healthcare workers, then I don't know what this country or where this country is heading, because we should be a priority. And here it is that the government is playing politics with us rather than addressing the needs of the community and the needs of the workers who are also taxpayers. So I'm hoping, and we as nurses are hoping, that common sense prevails.
And that is our hope at this end as well. Sister Melvin, thanks again for joining us. And thank you for your service and the nurses across this country for their service as well. Thank you, Sister Melvin.
Thank you, Mr. Duncan.
Great. And there you have it from Sister Melville of the Linden Hospital Corporation, and also the third vice president of the GPSU, the Guyana Public Service Union, that is giving leadership to this issue. Folks, we're going to have another guest shortly, but again, we are following what is happening, what is transpiring in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, while balancing what is happening here at home. We know, for instance, that the leader of the opposition, I haven't seen an official word out of the government as yet. That doesn't say it is not out there, but the leader of the opposition has asked the government to be in a position of readiness to even house folks from St. Vincent, Vincentians, if the need arises. I see also Barbados is pitching in to offer some help they have asked several cruise lines to be able to evacuate persons who are affected by this volcano. And we're going to have some additional updates from Miss Luzette King, who's a broadcaster and commentator in the region, and spends a lot of her time focusing on St. Vincent and the Grenadines and the British Virgin Islands. We're going to have that up shortly. But again, the eruption started yesterday and it was amplified this morning. And we have been covering that during the course of the day, among other issues. And we're going to be having some additional details in the program as Miss King joins us very shortly. I'm trying to get some additional information at my end here, but folks, it's a grave situation in St. Vincent currently, as it pertains to this volcanic eruption. Yeah, so we're going to have some additional information. There are some health concerns that are being generated at the hour, especially on the island and neighboring islands. I know Barbados, there is some concern about the ashfall, health concerns, respiratory issues, and all of that. And I think the Barbados government too is saying that they're in a state of readiness to accept some of the Vincentians in terms of housing them in Barbados if the need arises. So we are watching at that and monitoring this situation here out of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. The volcano has erupted in St. Vincent, and here we have some images of persons being evacuated from St. Vincent to neighboring shelters. And Miss King is in the virtual studio and she's going to be on with us. Again, I have the privilege of joining me this evening, Miss Luzette King out of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. She is a host of a very popular program there in St. Kitts, in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. The program is called The Raw Truth, and she's a co-host with Mr. Kenneth Gladstone, and they cover St. Vincent and the Grenadines and also the British Virgin Islands and cover issues widely in the Caribbean with that specific focus. And we're going to have Miss King on to walk us through as to what has been happening in St. Vincent, especially since this eruption. Lots of concerns there on the ground with persons being evacuated in a very timely manner. I've even heard that the government is not allowing persons who have not been vaccinated to board these boats and cruise ships that have come to help evacuate them to safety. And so a lot of concerns, and I know there's an abiding interest, especially in St. Kitts and in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, because if in no small measure, the role that Rav Gonzalez would have played quite recently here in Guyana. And so it is painful to see what is happening in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Again, for those of you who are now catching up to this volcanic eruption, the seismic activity would have started yesterday, and there was an eruption this morning, if my notes are correct. And the evacuation started last evening. Again, lots and lots of confusion there on the ground from some of the commentary I've been following all day coming out of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Some are saying that the government was not as prepared as they claim to be in terms of being able to evacuate its citizens. But we are following. Again, Leader of the Opposition, Joseph Harmon, has said the government should reach out to the folks there and be able to house some of the Vincentians here if it becomes necessary. I see the Barbadians are of the same posture while providing additional help. I think I have Miss King with me. Let me try to be sure of that. Miss King, are you there?
Well, I thought I was.
I'm hearing you, but I would love if I can see you, but I'll take what I can get.
I'm trying to do my best here. I even.
All right, Miss King.
Yeah. I don't know what else to do here to get it. It says that I'm in the show. It's a pity you can't see me, but I'll be playing around with it and see where we get to it. Good
Great.
evening. Good evening,
A very good evening, Ms.
Jared.
King, and welcome in the ring. As I was telling our viewers that you're joining us out of St. Vincent and the Grenadines,
Yes. Uh-huh.
you have an abiding interest in the upward mobility of Black people, especially women.
Yeah.
And that is according to one of the fierce critics of the Gonzales regime. You are the co-host of a very, very popular online program there called The Raw Truth with
Yes.
Kenneth Gladstone. You cover St.
Yes.
Vincent and the Grenadines and the British Virgin Islands and the Caribbean largely with
The
news
Caribbean
and
largely,
information.
yes. I might add, at one point, I did a program from Washington, D.C. called Global Highlights, but that it lasted about 7 years and it got shut down. But that's another story. But I've always had an interest in the media, especially radio, and it has come in very well, with what with my interest in seeing justice for our people. I heard you said something just now that I have to correct. And before I say anything else, let me say a pleasant good evening to my friend, Miss Pendagoyan. She called me a few minutes before I came on, and I hope
Great.
she's listening. And you too, you appeared twice on the Raw Truth.
I was very
To give
fortunate.
us-
Thanks again.
yes, to give us an idea of what's happening in Guyana. And Sherrod, we citizens of CARICOM states, we have to find a way to make our voices heard because the politicians do not represent us well. And this is something I would love us to try and do regionally.
Yeah.
Be that as it may, I'm here to talk about or to give you an update on the volcanic eruption in St. Vincent and the
So,
Grenadines.
yeah.
I
So
heard
tell
you
us a little
say,
bit about this about this volcano
right.
and its history as yeah.
Let me correct something. You said that it
Yes.
started erupting yesterday. That's not so.
Mhm.
It's been erupting since November of last year, but it was described as what the scientists call it diffusive eruption, where it's just a slow movement, you know. And what happened yesterday was an explosive eruption. Now, this
Great.
volcano that we have, uh, it's characteristic, characteristically, tying up my word here, it's a dormant um, volcano. We can remember the first eruption was about 1902. And we didn't have any activity again until 1971 or two when it had some rumblings, but it did not erupt then. And the other major eruption we had was in 1979. And it's just short 7 days. It was on a Good Friday, the 13th of April, when it erupted. And that eruption was an explosive one. And after that eruption, it left a dome. And so from 1979 to 2021 is about 40 what?
42
42
years.
years?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Now, let me give you some idea of what the nature of this volcano geographically. And I'm going to also give you a historical background to it as well. Geographically, it's at the top of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. I don't know how many people know what the shape of St. Vincent and the Grenadines is, but it's sitting right at the top. So it would affect the north Windward and the north leeward. Now the wind, that's right, that's it. So the north Windward is on the east, where the line is more or less straight. And where we have like a belly, that's the leeward side. So the volcano sits right on top there. Below the volcano, there's what we call a dry river.
Yeah.
And when that river overflows its bank, the people beyond the river, they are cut off. Now, there's this, the history to that is when we were going through our different ownerships by the colonialists, the different wars between the British and the French and whoever else, the English did conquer and they drove the indigenous people beyond the dry river. So until maybe the 1970s or thereabout, these people were actually cut off from us in every which way. They were spurned upon. We were taught in school that they were cannibals. There were people that we took advantage of. And when I say we, the rest of the population took advantage of them. They hardly went to school and so on. But that changed dramatically. And we even got more information about the people beyond the dry river when we found out that they were known as Garifuna, the Black Caribs. They were apparently the first settlers in St. Vincent and the Grenadines from Africa. And they were exiled in 1797. I don't know how many of your listeners might have heard of Garifuna. But when they were exiled after they lost a war. Their leader was Chatoué. He is now our national hero. When he was killed and, the others surrendered or maybe seized, they were put on an island called Baliso, literally to die, 5,000 of them. And those were the resistors. They wanted to keep their culture and everything else. And because of that, they were punished.
And so they generally lived closer to where the eruption is happening currently.
At that time, they lived all over. But when they lost the war, they were shoved beyond the dry river underneath the Soufrière. Mm-hmm. Now, those that survived and were exiled, they went to South America. Now, because we're not here to do a sort of history lesson, I'll leave it at that. But the 5,000 who were exiled, they're now 750 Garifuna across the world.
And I think if my memory serves me right, a member of this tribe, if you want to call it that, recently became a senator where you are, or a member of parliament?
A woman, exactly. A woman, Senator John. She's now Senator John. Now, so what we're saying, beyond the dry river, people were put there as punishment. They lived on their own. They lived by the sea, and they hunted a lot. And until recently, we now have lawyers, police officers, politicians, nurses, and every walk of life is represented in that community now. But that doesn't mean that they're still discriminated against. Okay? So let's fast forward. This volcano, as I say, has been dormant. And the prime minister and I hate to use the word because everybody knows I'm a fierce critic. I don't believe he deserves to be wearing that name, but for the sake of argument, yes. He pretends, as he always does with everything else, that he likes Black people and those people in particular. And his seat is on the eastern side of the island, the north central Windward, we call it. He represents that area. And above him is North Windward, where the volcano is. So what he's been doing since 2001, he's been focusing on putting all major projects on the eastern side of the island. The latest that he tried was the geothermal project. Now, scientists would say those of us with not much science knowledge and background, we're stupid to think that when they try to establish the geothermal whatever happenings there, that they might have done something to wake up the volcano, so to speak. And the reason why we say this, Sherrod, is because there was a big fanfare, because everything that's done in St. Vincent and the Grenadines by this regime is labeled a party business.
This sounds like the
So,
PPP here.
yes, very much so. I've been following it, yes.
Sounds like the
And
PPP, yeah.
so they had a big launch, they dressed up in the color red and so on, and they went up there and they tried to tell us that they found the heat that was necessary for the geothermal energy, and everybody jumping up and down. Some people were very excited because we're going to get cheap fuel. Lo and behold, somebody leaked that the geothermal workers, they were from one of the, I think it was Switzerland or somewhere about, but Europeans anyway. And mind you, there are experts in the Caribbean who can do that work. But he doesn't believe in local expertise. Anyhow, we got wind that these people were leaving, and they were leaving without fanfare. In fact, they left, as we would say, nearly 4 in the morning. They took away the equipment and they just disappeared. This was about June, maybe June or so last year. By November, when we had the election, just after the election, we had news that the volcano was active. And this report came from the seismic office in Trinidad. I think the scientist office, scientist name is Robinson, I think. And when he gave this information, he said that the activity had been occurring weeks before. And when asked, well, how come you didn't alert us? He said it was not for him, it was for Kingstown. So we then found out, yes, we then found out that the Unity Labour Party regime, the government, at least the Prime Minister knew that our volcano was active. And as I said before, it's a dormant volcano. So any kind of movement should cause alarm. Okay? Anyhow, we've been sitting on this thing since November, and then we had an outbreak, a dengue outbreak, and from the dengue outbreak, we had COVID. So in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, we had 3 crises.
And Ms. King, is it true with that that the government is running out of money to pay workers, so even outside of this volcanic eruption?
I don't think he running out. He has run out of money, long time. We've been suspecting this for a long time. And you see what is wrong with our government in St. Vincent and the Grenadines? We have not had accountability, audited accounts put before Parliament since about, I think it was 2010 or thereabout.
What?
No audit, yes. And a few years ago, I think it was about 2014, the New Democratic Party,
Who's
which
the
is the
finance minister
opposition
there?
party. Well, first of all, it was Ralph Gonsalves himself between 2001 and about 2013 or 14, and he handed it to his son.
Currently,
so,
the Prime Minister's son is a finance minister?
Yes, and the son's wife is in charge of the financial, what you call it now, the regulatory body for our finances.
This might.
Yeah,
I'm
current.
trying to think in my mind what is the equivalent here. Yeah.
Uh,
Interesting.
Financial
Interesting.
Services Authority.
Mhm.
So they would regulate the banking services. They would look at how money comes in. They basically control money laundering and that sort of thing. So she's
Mhm.
there. Okay.
Wow.
Yes.
So I can only imagine how a lack of finances, because even before the eruption of the volcano, the government was out of money. So I could imagine how this is impeding the evacuation and getting
Right.
supplies for the citizens
Right.
and so on.
Right.
Yeah.
In the midst of this eruption, and as I said, the explosive eruption happened yesterday, but we've been having eruptions since November. In the last 2 weeks, he's been pushing as if, when you have a fishmonger running out of time with a fish, how they're pushing the fish. This is
Mhm.
how he's been pushing the vaccination. And at
Miss
one
King, I
point,
see
he
some people
said,
asking at my end. So I want to be clear. You're saying Ralph Gonzalez is the prime minister.
mhm,
His son is the finance minister, and the son's wife is like the oversight, but has responsibility for like the oversight of spending and that kind of stuff.
correct,
Regulation. My God.
correct, correct,
What is
correct,
King?
correct. So sometime last week, he announced that the government will have problems paying salaries. We many of us laughed because we knew long time that the treasury was empty. We just had an election, and for all the elections since 2000, they came in 2001, 2005. We do not believe there's ever been a free and fair election because
And
the
as a,
treating and the bribery is unheard of in our history.
and
The last
I think you
election,
guys also have an elections petition before the court, two elections back, I think.
well, 2015,
2015, yeah.
2015. And that according to him, he did tell us beforehand that it will never come to light. So it's there at the moment, still at the appeal stage, but he's gone on and lost popularity, but won another seat.
Mhm.
So in the midst of this triad crisis, dengue, volcano, and COVID, he has an election. And during the election, this election was in November, the borders were open, no restrictions on campaigning and everything else. People coming in as they like, especially the business, the European business people, those people who are investors. They've been coming in, they have their own arrangements, which are different from the local people when it comes to controlling the COVID. So by about December, we start having community spread. Okay. And so because of this, it was an opportune time when the vaccination era started in the region. He found it necessary to literally bully people to the
I
point
see the
where
teachers
now,
there have been complaining too about this bullying for vaccination.
correct. And what has happened? Now, don't forget, I told you that we've had effusive eruptions since November of last year.
Yes.
The explosive one was actually, it started about 11 o'clock yesterday.
And it was
And
made to
he,
understand there was a second one just this evening, a smaller
correct,
eruption.
correct,
Yeah.
correct. But before I get to that,
Mhm.
it was about 2 o'clock when Ralph Gonzalez issued the evacuation warning, asking people to leave the red zone. If you can show your listeners again, to leave the red zone immediately. I can tell you that up until midnight last night, there were still people in the red zone. Some people said they were not moving because they would have lived and experienced the eruption of 1979, and they had people going to their properties and so on and so on, and they were not leaving.
Mhm.
Others just could not get transportation.
So
The
I think what
national,
he's saying to us is that this Ralph Gonzalez, who pretends that he is a statesman in the Caribbean,
don't
had
bother with
no
that.
plan in place. Had no plan in place.
He himself said, what do we put it? A statesman is a dead politician or something to that effect. He doesn't believe in statesmen. He said it. And one of the assets we have in St. Vincent and the Grenadines is Ralph Gonzalez's mouth. He chats a lot, eh? But anyway, so yesterday you had people stranded. Coupled with those people who don't want to leave and those who couldn't get out, there were others who will not leave because they were threatened once they step onto the government evacuation centers, they will be vaccinated. And I wanted to play that thing that I sent you. I saw you with it just now with the man with the mask on.
Yeah, I think what was being said, I don't have the audio, but I think what was being said early on is that they could not board unless they were willing to be vaccinated.
No. Not only the boarding. You jump in a little bit. One, they
Tell
couldn't
us.
go in the evacuation centers without being evacuated. This is the one here.
Mhm.
He calls himself a lawyer and goes on radio last night and saying it is not a drill and it's not voluntary. You will be vaccinated once you step on the government evacuation center. Now,
Lizette, you on the ground there, but it sounds to me like real confusion. It sounds
absolutely.
like a
So
lot of
here,
confusion.
but here for now, just before I came on,
You got your
I
own PPP to deal with.
yeah, whoa, oh yes. But I told you guys that before. He should not have been allowed in Guyana to meddle in Guyanese election. I said it. Hardly anybody took any notice of me. Anyhow, I just saw a video recording from America. Okay, they were reporting on the developments in St. Vincent and Grenadines, and they said that there were 3 cruise liners outer shores waiting to
Yes.
evacuate people if
Carnival,
need.
Royal Caribbean, and I can't
Now,
remember the other one.
before the explosive eruption, Ralph Gonzalez said that they had help with these cruise liners, but they could not. The people could not go. The evacuees could not go on the ship unless they were vaccinated.
Mhm.
You know what was reported just before I came on?
Yeah.
That was not their thing.
Yeah. I think the cruise liner said that they don't have such a policy.
It was the local authority. They leave it up to the local authority.
Yeah.
Not only the cruise liners, the Grenadians came out straight and said that was not their idea. The St. Lucians in their report did not say that they want anybody to be vaccinated, nor did Barbados. So this man is playing games with our lives.
Yeah. Yeah. Miss King,
You understand me?
there in St. Vincent, you have this national disaster, this natural disaster and national disaster happening. Who does the citizens look to in terms of information?
Well,
Because I was looking for a central source, but it seems to be you have to pick up who is going live from some point to be able to gather the information. So where does the citizens get the information as to how they should be going? Because you did mention this guy, I didn't know he was a lawyer, who we saw on the Facebook Live giving instructions. I thought he might have been part of the evacuation team. He
no.
seemed to be just an independent person, just there at that moment and just.
Which one? This one here with the mask?
Yes.
He's a member of parliament. Now, recently we've lost 2 veteran journalists, Jerry George and Randy Dopwell. Randy Dopwell was around for the 1979 eruption. I wasn't in St. Vincent. I was in England at the time. But I heard that he went around the clock and he was covering everything, coordinated everything. But since those two guys have left, it's piecemeal. Anybody who has an interest, recently it's been Lennox Lampkin, who taking time out and playing what's happening. But other than that, NEMO, the National Emergency Management Organization, which basically is a part of the Unity Labour Party government, they can only say and do what is instructed, right?
Yeah.
And so we would get some information from them. For example, I have not heard anything about what we should be doing in the event of the ash spreading.
And I know that's a concern in Barbados because I was looking at a press conference
Yes.
By the Prime Minister of Barbados, and there's some fear in Barbados about ashfall.
Yes, because the first eruption this morning, and let me tell you, the height of the Soufrière, the mountain, is about 3,650 feet up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The first explosion this morning, the cloud, it was spectacular on the lives. That went up to about, I understand, 25,000 feet. But it looked as if it didn't. Yes, it looked as if it didn't come so much to St. Vincent itself. It veered off to the ocean and affected St. Lucia to the north and Barbados to the east. Right?
Mm-hmm.
This afternoon, maybe at about 2, there was another explosion, and that went up to about 60,000 feet. So right now, most of the villages and the towns, Chateaubelair and Georgetown, in that red zone is covered in ash, and people describe it as a kind of cement, and it's fairly thick. But where I am in the green zone. You have the red, the orange, the yellow, and the green. I was fortunate enough to stand and see it bellowing, the cloud. Some people on another side can see there's still fire there. I can't see it. But we have a situation now. There's been reports coming out of the camps. Let me say camps, so the centers, the evacuation centers, where the facilities are inadequate. In fact, people went to the camps last night where there was no food in some places and no place to sleep.
And I was looking at a live video. I was looking at a live video also, Ms. King, where one gentleman was saying, it was during the course of the day, that if it was night, it would have been even worse because he was pointing to the fact that so many persons were stranding.
But that's the point I'm making. And I'm saying to you, for the last 3 weeks, I just don't listen to Ralph Gonsalves, but I listen to people who listen to him and they report. I do not think he mentioned Soufrière more than 3 times in the last 3 weeks. It was more to do threatening teachers, threatening minibus driver operators, threatening, who else did he threaten? There's somebody else, another group of people he threatened that if they didn't have the vaccine, what would happen? And all this time, in fact, the school was due to open this Monday.
Wow.
Can you imagine it?
Just like
and
here.
Some teachers were saying, how can you open the school when most of the schools are going to be used as evacuation centers, number one. And number two, they were going to call on teachers to manage these centers. I am not aware that these teachers had any training.
Yeah. Ms. King, this is now about 24 hours since this eruption would have started. Well, you did say since November you would have been having a precursor. What is the temperature on the ground there in St. Vincent? These many hours later, what is happening on the ground there?
Temperature in terms of heat, how we
No, no,
feel?
no. In terms of
Oh,
in terms of
you
what
know,
happened generally,
people are
are they
very
constant updates? You know, what is the government doing?
well. There is this thing called, as I said, NEMO. NEMO has been issuing thing, and this is another thing. When they're giving reports from these government stations, they go on the the national radio that is hugged by Ralph Gonsalves most of the time. And sometimes they might go on other radio stations. But St. Vincent and Grenadines is so divided politically that some people will not be seen or heard playing one radio station and other people playing the other. Like for example, there's one called Nice Radio, which is predominantly the station where the New Democratic Party would have their programs and so on, the discussions.
That's under Dr. Friday.
It's not under him. It's owned by one. It's a private
No,
radio
sorry, I was referring
station.
to the party.
Oh
That's the
yes,
opposition
yes,
party, the New
yeah,
Democratic
yeah.
Party there.
A
Great.
very decent man, I must say, very decent. I don't know why Vincentians don't like decency, but anyway. So the other radio stations are predominantly they are more or less they carry the government line. So if you really want to get information,
Miss King,
you
this
might have
sounds
to
like
go.
Guyana transported to St. Vincent. Everything you've said for the last 45 minutes sounds
Yes,
like Guyana
yes,
transported to St.
yes,
Vincent.
yes, yes, yes. And the thing another thing that is very similar in St. Vincent and the Grenadines and Guyana is the racism. Don't tell me that St. Vincent and the Grenadines does not have racism. Ralph Gonsalves himself is a racist because one, he declares himself Portuguese. Two, he does not allow Black people to own. He's been selling out our lands to foreigners, white foreigners. And those Black people, there's a very good case, Bigger Bigs, Leon Samuel. This man, before he was 50 years old, owned a sand mining, block making business. Ralph Gonsalves' regime went up there 10 years ago and summarily shut down the man business.
Oh boy.
About 5 years later, he
Miss King,
comes
you're a
out to
guest. I
say it
really
was a
want to get
mistake.
into Guyanese politics, but my God, it is so identical.
Yes, it is. And
The politics.
this is why I said earlier, from the very get-go, CARICOM does not look after our interests, especially when they have this sham of a reparations coming. I just hate that word now. I can't stand it. Reparations for who? Relatively speaking, Black people in Guyana, Black people in St. Vincent, I can't speak for the others. Relatively speaking, we are suffering the same things that these bandits are trying to get reparations for from for our foreparents.
Very interesting. Very
The
interesting.
Rastafari, there's a project, a farming project where what's it, who was it? There was a European government that bought some lands, fertile land, arable land, and granted it to the Rastafari community. Ralph Gonsalves went there, took it away, and had a dubious investor named David Ames, who is now facing charges in England, came to St. Vincent, rip off British pensioners of some 400 and something million pounds, and leave St. Vincent workers without pay, ran away with national insurance contributions and the whole lot.
But I understand why Ralph Gonsalves liked the PPP, because birds of identical plumage assemble together in close proximity.
But
I
I told
understand
you
why.
guys that I've
I
been
understand why.
I did a live and I told you
Yeah.
guys to chase
Miss
them out
King,
of town.
Miss King, unfortunately, we're out of time this evening. I hope you can come back in a couple of days and give us another update as to what is happening. And and we are
Right.
very hopeful that things would have improved in terms of what's happening on the ground there. But I want to thank you for giving us this update
Yeah.
because, of course, you see stuff on social media. You need better context for it, and I'm happy that you agreed to come on this
Yeah.
evening
Yeah.
and give us an update.
Right now though, it's still exploding. There's still stuff coming up, but every now and again, and they say this is gonna last for days. Either it explodes a little bit more or it simmers down. But the emissions are still there. You know, it's still happening. The clouds are now blocked out for the smoke that's coming out, and boulders might be coming out too. I don't know. I haven't heard about that, but it won't be unusual. So we're just here
Great,
waiting to see what will
great.
happen. We have our water and food put aside for about a week or two.
Well, Ms. King, give our regards to Kenneth, and you and your family, please stay safe. And we'll talk
Yes,
to you
we are.
guys in a couple of days. Thanks for joining us in the ring,
Not a
Ms. King.
problem. Take care.
Great. You as well. Folks, that is Miss Luzette King out of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. She is a co-host on the program The Raw Truth with Mr. Kenneth Gladstone. And they cover events happening in St. Vincent and the Grenadines in the British Virgin Islands and the wider Caribbean. A very, very informative program, The Raw Truth. And as I said, we're going to have her back in a couple of days to give us an update as things progress and unfold on the ground there. I want to thank you guys for spending the last hour with us in the ring. As you know, here we promote the truth and we defend the facts. Folks, continue to social distance, wear your mask, sanitize. Once the groups you're living in, you shouldn't be in groups of larger than 10, and even in those groups, you should be socially distanced. Don't be like the Speaker of the National Assembly and breaking the COVID regulation. Thanks for joining, guys. Have a great weekend, and we're going to see you guys back on Monday. Thanks for joining us from all over Guyana and the diaspora. Guys, it has been our privilege. Do stay safe, guys. COVID is real. Do stay safe. Thanks for joining us. See you on Monday.